Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Popcorn Wind Down. I'm Eddie.
And I'm Tammy.
Thank you for joining us this week. Before we get started, let's give a shout out to this week's sponsor, Fancy's Fantasy Sports. You have hoop dreams of playing one-on-one, tackle football, or hitting that grand slam? Well, no matter what sports dream tickles your fancy, allow us and our professionals to help you make that dream come true. For more, hit us up at fancysfantasysports.com. This week, we get a closer look at the controversial figure who helped inspire Venus and Serena Williams to take the tennis world by storm and become champions both on and off the court. Their father, Richard Williams. King Richard tells the story of the man and his plan, all 78 pages, to turn his daughters into world superstar tennis champions. So, Tammy, what did you think? Was King Richard an ace or a double fault?
Is that a tennis term?
Yes. Ace means ace is good. Double fault is bad.
Okay. I will say one thing. I did enjoy the movie. I really did. But I learned nothing about tennis after watching this movie. I know the same amount that I knew before the movie, which is nothing. But the ball goes over the net. But I really, really did enjoy the movie. Funny thing is, when I first saw King Richard, I automatically thought like it was going to be like a King Arthur movie, right? I didn't know who the movie was about. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm so in because I love like the Arthur movies and everything like that. And I was like, they were like, no, it's about Venus and Serena Williams' dad. And I was just like, oh yeah, I'll watch that too. So, but it turned out to be really, really good. Great acting on the part of Will Smith and John, what is that? Bernthal? Is that how you say his name? John Bernthal. I thought he was really, really, really great. Like he's a character actor. Like he just completely falls into whatever character that he's playing. He's a great actor.
Yeah, I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. As a huge sports fan, as a tennis fan, as someone who's followed the career of the Williams sisters, I remember when their father was more in charge and more involved in their career. And there's no way to say it. Richard Williams was an asshole. And I think as I was watching this movie, I don't think the movie did anything to change your opinion from that, but it gave you a better understanding of where he was coming from and the man himself and why he did some of the things he did. And I get it. Some of it was media portrayal, and some of it was actually the man himself. And I agree with you. Will Smith did an excellent job. I remember, I think it was a couple of years ago when the movie was initially announced, and I'm like, Will Smith is playing Richard Williams, and I'm like, but they look nothing alike. And it's kind of like that Jennifer Hudson, Aretha Franklin thing. You forget that as you're watching a movie, it's like Will Smith becomes Richard Williams, and you forget there is really no resemblance between the two. Like he did that amazing of a job portraying their father. And it wasn't necessarily a tennis movie, so I'm not surprised that you didn't learn, that you didn't pick up anything about tennis, the sport itself, just besides what most people know, that it's a predominantly white sport. And the Williams sisters broke that color barrier, and they still take shit for it today. They've become the best, especially Serena, to ever play the game. And sometimes you still think, especially tennis media, they are so horrible and so horribly racist. You forget they still don't get the props that they necessarily deserve in that sport. So like I said, after watching it, I did gain more of a respect for Richard Williams, or at least a better understanding of him. Because what you saw in the movie it actually just barely scratched the surface of some of who he was, but you got a better understanding of it. So, I guess you answered the question before. You're not a tennis fan, huh?
No, I'm not. I mean, I'm a Serena Williams fan, but I still don't watch the sport. But then you know me, like I'm not a sports person at all. Like it's very, very rare that you'll catch me watching a game. And usually it's only because somebody else that's in the room is watching it and I just decided to get involved in it. But I'm a fan of the Williams sisters and what they did. Like I know what they did, but tennis, absolutely not.
Hmm. So, not having, I guess, a history or really knowing, what did you think about their father, like his personality? Like, I'm just interested from someone who wasn't a tennis fan and who wasn't all that familiar with him and his antics, I will say, for lack of a better word.
I feel like he was the black version of the white fathers, or parents. But he was more focused. Like I think, granted, he was an asshole. But my question is, do you think they would have gotten as far as they did if he wasn't an asshole? If he played nice?
No, definitely not. And that was one of the questions that a lot of people asked because, like I said, universally, he's not a very liked man. And they are estranged from their father, and have been for quite some time. I don't know if personally behind the scenes they've mended some of those bridges. I don't even think he was at Serena's wedding. And I know officially, I don't think her parents are divorced, but I know that they're not together. I think
They are.
They are divorced. Okay,
Because
they did.
their mom was his second wife.
Oh, okay. Um, I I don't know, and I want to say I think he actually has another family, like he has another. So, but like I said, you get a better understanding in coming through, especially with tennis being as how racist. I don't necessarily want to say the term racist, but we'll say as white bread or not diverse as it is, and as it was in considering. I think before the Williams sisters, there was Arthur Ashe, and there was, oh gosh, I forgot her name. She was from Houston, and Arthur Ashe, I think one Arthur
Thea
Ashe.
Gibson?
No, not Althea Gibson. There was Althea Gibson, but there was another during the height of like Steffi Graf. Not Steffi Graf. I think she was a little bit before Steffi Graf. I can't even remember her name, and it's going to come to me at the most inopportune time. But there have been very, very few people of color to play tennis until they came along and pretty much just broke open the color barrier. And gradually, we're starting to see more people of color, especially women, break into the sport, which I'm so happy about. But so yeah, he had to do what he did. You get the drive, you get the determination. And like I said, some of that was because some of the criticism that he took and some of the shit that he took and got was just the media not knowing how to deal with this black man who wasn't going to back down and allow you to abuse and misuse and mistreat his daughters and to get rich off their name. So a lot of that was him being a very protective father. I get that. But to answer your initial question, no, they wouldn't have gotten as far as they would have without him. And I think that's why they decided, a lot of people are like, why are you going to make a movie about him and not them? And I think they wanted people to have a better understanding of without Richard Williams, despite whatever else he was our father, he loved us. And without him, we wouldn't be who and where we are today. And, they actually co-executive produced the movie, both of them. So they co-signed on the movie. And I get it. Like, so, yeah. What about you? I mean, I guess, yeah.
No, I definitely agree. He did what he had to do. He had a plan, which is one thing that annoyed because he kept talking about the plan.
Which he would not deviate from.
Yeah,
That
he would not
him and that
deviate from the
78
plan
pages.
at all. He was a little shady on certain things that he did in order to meet the goals within the plan. But you understand he did what he had to do, and at the same time, he made sure he raised his kids correctly. If that's like the correct term, huh? he made sure that they focus on their academics. A lot of times, once you see the talent of a child or of a teenager, everything else goes by the wayside. Like, no, you don't focus on anything else. You just focus on that talent, and you're just okay, we're going to drive them for that talent. I see it all the time. And what people forget is you are a student athlete. You're a student before you're an athlete. And a lot of times people just be like, nah, I mean, school, yeah, but look how much they can make just from playing the sport. But you don't play the sport for the rest of your life. Like, at some point, you have to retire and you need to have something to fall back on. And I feel that they were prepared to have something to fall back on rather than looking back and saying tennis was my whole entire life and I have nothing else to go for. And now that I don't play tennis, I'm completely broken. Like, I feel like that's less likely to happen with the Williams sisters compared to other athletes that make their sport their whole entire world.
Yeah, because they already have different businesses. Serena's a fashion designer. Venus is an interior designer. Like, they have other businesses and interests outside of the sport. So it is truly add movie producers to that now. So investments and all of that different stuff. So yeah, like I said, you have to give credit to what he did. He may have been a little unwavering and stubborn and a little shady in doing so, but he did what he did. And it ultimately paid off. Love him or hate him, I would say ultimately you have to respect the man and what he did for his daughters and how he bulldozed them into a sport that didn't want anything to do with two little Black girls from Compton, California. Um, and he got them to the heights of their game, and he did it his way. After he didn't want to burn them out on the junior circuit, which could have very well backfired, but it didn't. I think the one part where you said, where we talked about him being unwavering from that plan, where he almost missed the moment and missed the opportunity, is when he initially wouldn't let Venus go play in her first professional tournament, even though everybody was telling him it's time, it's time, it's time. you know. So I think that he was a bit stubborn, and he always wanted to be in control. It was like it was his way or no way. It was always going to be his decision, even if it wasn't the best decision. He was going to be the one calling the shots and making the decisions for his daughters and their career. And I loved when his wife went off on him. Was like, "Nah, I fixed her serve. I fixed Serena's serve after you fucked it up."
Yeah. No, I think like that was, to me, that was the most powerful scene for me, on calling him out on his mess, and then her calling out on the fact that once he didn't like what she was really saying, he walked away. Like, it was no engaging in the conversation to really hear what she was telling him. And it wasn't her, like, she didn't go off on him on yelling at him and everything like that. No, she gave him the real, she gave him the truth. And I love that. Like, she was just like, you think I'm here for you? I'm not here for you. I'm here for my girls. And even when he tried to throw it back in her face, saying about how she'd have been in an apartment with 3 girls and no father, and she still went at him and still called him out. Like, she stood her ground. Even when, like, he tried to leave the girls at the store, and she was just like, you go back and you get my girls. Like, you go back and you get my girls. Like, and she was like, don't you ever do that again. Don't you ever do that again. It was just like, that's a mama for you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Like, she was strong on, she was like, she was fully there for the plan and everything like that. She trusted in the plan, but at the same time, she spoke up at some point. Like, she was like, no, you going too far and you need to step back, because you about to bring out the bad side of me and you don't want that kind of thing. So that was good.
I love Aunjanue Ellis. I hope that's how you say her name. I loved her. Like, she was one of my favorite characters on NCIS LA. I love that show when she played LL Cool J's wife.
Oh yeah, I remember.
But I loved her, and I thought she did a great role as Orsi. That was one of the most powerful scenes to me, like that whole argument they had where she was like, "Oh, you want to talk about past and dig up shit? You know what? You want to treat my daughters like you treated your son or whatever." So I was just like, "Oh shit." But also when he basically withdrew them from juniors and he didn't tell anybody,
Yeah,
or
not even her.
yeah, and she was like, "Don't you think that's a decision we should have made together?" Like, and she was like, "Don't mistake my silence for complicity. Don't think that means I support you. It just means I'm not gonna call you out in front of other people, but you were wrong, you know." And she was like, "But let it," and when she told him, "Let it happen again, I won't be so quiet next time." I was like, "Oh."
Yeah, she was very, very. She was also strong in her convictions. But people would think. I guess in the movie, you would think that she was more background, but she wasn't. She just knew when to step forward and speak her mind, and when to kind of see what was going to happen, based on what he was doing. And she knew him, so she knew she had to come a certain way in order to make sure her point got across. You know.
Yeah. And I think, and I like that, even though, the movie wasn't about her or their mom. When it was interesting, you said in the movie, or people think, but I think just a lot of times, just spectators, because her family, their entire family has always been at their matches, especially their mom. Especially the bigger ones, their sisters. So you would always see the Williams family at the matches. That was not anything new. But I think people more so, um, thought that her mom was just a standby figure, was just that supporting doting mom. I don't think they realized truly just how big of a role she played in their careers as well. Especially, like I said, that was one of my favorite parts where she's like, "I fixed Serena's serve. You fucked it up, but I fixed that." Like, that's my doing. Like, when she let them know, "Look, it's not just you. I was coaching when when you and I understand why they did what they did, putting them Venus because she was older, but like when you were out there with Venus at her practices, who do you think was back here coaching Serena, keeping her on? So I love that. Um, Goodness, and I I got what I understood where he's come from. We talked about him raising his family, and I have forgotten that thing about Jennifer Capriati, and I think that kind of freaked him out. Um, and that was true. Like Jennifer Capriati, she was like a young tennis phenom, and she was great. But I think the pressure became too much for her. And also, her father was also her manager, and they say he was a pill too. He and Richard Williams probably could have given each other a run for their money. And I know when she parted ways with her father, I remember that scandal. It all came back, and I think that just kind of freaked him out. But I also don't think he realized that, hey, you're not raising Jennifer Capriati. Like you've given your girls a more steady foundation. So I think that freaked him out a little bit. That's what I got from it.
I agree. I definitely agree. I definitely saw that as well. And that's why he put the brakes on a lot of things, because, like, one thing that people kept bringing up was that he basically stopped her competing in tournaments. And it partly goes towards that fear of her burning out, with all the pressure that was being put on Venus. But also, he was putting a lot of pressure on her as well. And he got called out for doing that by the coach, John Bernthal's character. I forgot what his name was. Where he called out Richard on the pressure that he was putting on Venus as well. And so I think that he kind of put the brakes on it, because it's true what he said. Like, I want them to be kids. Like, I know they're great at this, but they also have to be kids and have a life and be able to talk about that when they were growing up, they remember more than just playing tennis. I understand what he was saying, but I also think that it may not have it was just like you just got lucky on it paying off, that she was so good
Mm-hmm.
That time away from tournaments did not hurt her game. Like that's ultimately what it was. That her and Serena was just so good
Yeah, because
that
most
it did
kids.
not hurt their game. But if they had not have been as good as they were, like let's say they were still growing in their talent, that could have hindered her career. He was just lucky on that. But I understood what he was doing. I get it. I definitely get it. But there is luck that went into that as well.
I agree with you, because I don't care who you are or what you do. You take 3 years off, and you just, even though you're practicing, you take 3 years off from competition. It's going to hurt. And in hindsight, 2020, you could say, all right, they can play in one or two tournaments a month and kind of balance it out that way. It's like he did not have to completely yank them off of the junior circuit. You could have cut back on the amount that they played and still played the service. But like you said, it was a lot of luck involved, a lot of luck, and skill, because anybody else, if they hadn't been that good, no, they definitely would not have been able to do what they did in that match. And I don't remember that match. I'm not going to sit here and say that I watched all of the, and especially at that time, they didn't have the tennis network, so you couldn't watch all of the matches like Indian Wells or the ones that weren't the majors. So I don't remember that, but she was an ass. I was like, and I think that's maybe where they got the rule from. Oh God, I can't remember her name. But she was the number one tennis player in the world at the time, and she was from Spain. And I think that's why they now instituted the rule where you can't just take off of the court and do that anymore. You can call a timeout, but it has to be for like a legit purpose. Like if you have to go to the bathroom, I think they time it like you may get 5 minutes, or you can take a medical timeout, but it actually has to be something legit where you can't just go and stay off the court for damn near 20 minutes anymore. Like that to cool a player. But I'm like, damn, that's what you had to get stoop. That's what you had to stoop to not get your ass beat by a 14-year-old.
Is it wrong that I think that was like a very, very smart move that she did that paid off?
No, because I'm with you, but it's like
I mean, it was an asshole move, but it was still a very smart move.
Yeah, it was an asshole move, but I'm with you. It's like, and I was just like, that's what you got to do that's just me thinking that's what you got to do to not get your ass beat by a 14-year-old. But yeah, she did what she had to do to save some face. But I think the next year is the year that she won Wimbledon for the first time. So, ultimately she got the last laugh. Like Venus came back on your ass. And it was a good learning experience for her. But I think. So what was your favorite besides Will Smith? Who was your favorite character? Do you have a favorite character?
Oh, he was not my favorite character.
He wasn't?
Oh God, no. Not at all.
He
was annoying. He was annoying. I thought he was very, very shady. No, he wasn't, because like you said, he was an asshole. I'll be honest, I don't fall for the assholes. It's very, very rare that I fall for the assholes, like real assholes. I would say my favorite character would be John Bernthal's character, which is hilarious because I don't remember his name. But in the movie, but I loved his character and their mom. Like, she was a force of nature. She just wasn't in your face about it the way that Richard Williams was. So, but yeah, those two would be the characters that I really, really enjoyed in the movie. What about you?
Yeah, I liked Will Smith's portrayal of Richard Williams. Like I said, it didn't do anything to make me more of a Richard Williams fan. It gave me a better understanding of some of his motivations. Um, and John Bernthal's character, his name was Rick Macy. I loved him. I loved the girls who played Venus and Serena, Demi Singleton and Michaela Lachey Bartholomew. Oh no, wrong name. Sanaya Sidney was Venus, and Demi Singleton was Serena. But I also like Tony Goldwyn's character. Like I didn't know that originally they were coached by the guy who coached John McEnroe and Pete Sampras. So
Okay,
I was
wait.
like,
Quick question:
mm-hmm.
Is John McEnroe the one who voices for Never Have I Ever?
Yes.
Ah, I knew I recognized that name. I was like, I know I recognize that name somewhere. Okay, sorry. Go ahead. My bad.
Yeah. So, and McEnroe, he was like, I don't know how you would describe him today, but he was the hothead. He was the bad boy of tennis. He was a little bit before my time, but just as I was starting to get into the sport, and I remember as I was little watching it, and he still commentated on tennis. And my mom, I always would go back and ask my mom about all these people that you hear, and I'm like, what was he like? What was he like? And I've seen tape of him, and I've heard about him, but John McEnroe was like the bad boy of tennis. Like he was in your face, cuss you out, going after the umps. Like he was just, and they say that in Europe, because tennis is supposed to be that gentleman's sport, it's so polite, especially at Wimbledon, where to this day you still have to wear all white and they have very strict dress code and all that. He was considered that American, like that obnoxious American overseas and stuff like that. So, yeah. And then Pete Sampras was different. I remember Pete Sampras playing and all of that. Pete Sampras was just like, kind of quiet, gentleman, nice. At least on the court. I'm sure, maybe off the court he may have been different, but yeah, I didn't realize that was their original coach. So, but I like Tony Goldwyn's character. Like every time Richard Williams, he would say, "Open your stance, open your stance." He's like, "No, close the stance, close your stance." And I kept thinking, I was like, I know in real life some words have to be exchanged. Like, why the fuck did you go through all this trouble to get me to coach if you're just gonna override everything I say? Like that's what it seemed like to me. Like he was trying to find them a coach to legitimize them, to actually be able to get them on the circuit, to open the doors that he couldn't get open for them. But he didn't really want to coach. He just wanted someone to front for him. You know what I mean? And he
Yeah.
wanted to still be the coach. That's the idea I got from that. So I love their back and forth where it's like, okay, Richard, okay. And then when he went and he was like, you can do this. Like, he was that calming force for a little bit with Venus. That one scene where he's like, you got this, you got this. But yeah, I have to agree. So, I guess, do you have anything else to add for King Richard?
No, it was a really good movie and I would suggest it.
Okay. So what are you would recommend it? What are you going to rate it?
So I'm going to rate King Richard with a 3.5 popcorns. Really, really good acting. I really enjoyed it. I even loved the end sequence where they actually showed film of Venus and Serena. Like I think like that's where I started to be like, oh my gosh, yes. Like I think that got me even more than the whole movie on like seeing the growth that they did and who they are now and everything like that. So yeah, 3.5 popcorns, really, really good. And I would definitely recommend it to be watched. What about you, Eddie?
I agree. I give it 3.75. I would love, and now that we've seen King Richard, now that we've seen the man behind the women, I would love to see a biopic about the sisters, whether it's one done jointly, the Williams sisters, or one separately. I would love to see a biopic. I know they have like documentaries and all that, but I would actually love to see their story told, like, just them. Um, and I also would love to see Serena ultimately, before she retires, break the tie for Grand Slam championships. Just an aside. I have one further question before I go on and we wrap this up. So far, because it is award season, I would be remiss in not asking this. And I know we haven't seen all of the movies yet or the nominees yet, but would you say that this is deserving of Oscar consideration? Will Smith's performance.
Okay, as I say, the movie, the performances, like which one?
The performance. The movie, I wouldn't quite put up to Oscar snuff, but the performance, I would love to see, maybe a supporting consideration. I'm not going to say nomination just yet because, like I said, we don't have the list, and I haven't started watching some of the ones that are contention or the ones that have been mentioned. But I believe Aunjanue Ellis deserves some consideration for maybe supporting actress, and Will Smith for actor, quite possibly, because he
John
did the big thing.
Bernthal for supporting. Definitely.
So
John
too?
Bernthal for supporting. Sorry. I think he did a phenomenal job. So yeah, I would definitely not be surprised if they're in for consideration, or even if they get the nominations when they're announced next year.
Okay. So I'm gonna keep track of that. Are we doing the House of Gucci? Did we ever add it to the list?
We didn't.
We need to, because we've got to, whether it's going to be an extra butter for next year or something, we've got to talk about the House of Gucci because there's just been so much about that movie. Okay. So like I said, to totally backtrack, I give it a 3.75. And maybe that's just because of the nostalgia that it brought up. Because, maybe because I followed their careers, or I had a different, like I said, not a different view of Richard Williams, because like I said, the movie did nothing to improve your thoughts of him. Like it didn't and I guess I can appreciate that it didn't sugarcoat the fact that the man was an asshole. You just have a better understanding of him, and why he did some of the things that he did. So definitely 3.75, and I would love to see a biopic about the sisters. And as a matter of fact, I did recommend it. Someone asked me, they were like, I don't know what, I want to watch a good movie this weekend. What should I watch? And I was like, King Richard, if you haven't seen it. So there you go. And then I'm going to send them a text and say, and be sure to check out our episode on King Richard. See.
Plug it in.
Plug it in. Speaking of which, I guess that does it for this week's episode of the Popcorn Wind Up. We need a theme song. Go ahead and say it.
I can't add it to the list, Eddie.
I set you up for that when I'm like, just add it to the list. Okay, so that does it for this week's episode of the Pop. Ooh, maybe we can get Silk Sonic to do our theme song. You got Silk Sonic money?
No.
I'm gonna have to put you to work.
Ooh, damn.
You might have to go work at Fantasy Sports. Okay, I'll stop. Sounds like I'm trying to pimp you out. Let me stop. Okay. Please be sure to listen, like, follow, and comment on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify Podcasts. You can also keep up to date on the latest in entertainment and pop culture news, as well as other amazing kernels of pop culture goodness at thepopcornwinddown.com. That's it. That's the plug. Pop. Thank you as always, and be sure to join us next week when we discuss, Steven Spielberg's remake of the classic musical West Side Story, which I've heard is amazing. It's been getting some really good
reviews. I'm very excited.
I am very excited too. So until next time, I'm Eddie.
And I'm Tammy. Bye.
Peace.